Welcome back to Season 4 of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Join me, Brad, each week as my guests and I share incredible and powerful sobriety stories. We're here to show sobriety is possible, one story at a time. Let's go. In this episode of the podcast, Don shares his journey growing up with an alcoholic father to his own struggles with addiction and eventual sobriety. Don recounts the turning moments that led him to realize the depth of his addiction, including his near-death experiences and the kindness of a stranger who helped him find his way. He discusses how sobriety opened doors to unexpected opportunities, including a role in a Netflix show and a thriving career in building hot rods. Don's story is a testament to the power of resilience, support systems, and a higher power in finding a new and fulfilled life. And this is Don's story on the Sober Motivation Podcast. How's it going, everybody? Midway through October, just want to do a little check-in. I think one of the things I wanted to bring to the beginning of this episode was one of the things that really kept me stuck. One of the things that really kept me stuck was thinking that I was so much different than everybody else. And although I've had my own personal journey and perspective in life and own experiences, when it came to all of this, my goodness, I was no different. And I have a lot of chats with people all the time. You know, how things for them look different. It's not relatable to some of the stories they hear or how other people were, maybe how their parents were. You know, they're quote unquote high-functioning alcoholics, which I do find very interesting. I mean, even if things are going well, you're a business owner, you're excelling in your career and relationships are great and all these things in your life, like they're pretty good. They're not all falling apart. Imagine waking up every day at 110%, not at 50%. From being hungover or the anxiety or not getting a good night's sleep or wondering what you said or wondering what you did. Imagine having the weekends that you didn't just drink away, but that you maybe plugged into some of your goals or spending time with yourself on walks or journaling or reading or really leaning into a family life if that's there for you as well. Building relationships with your partners or husbands or wives or whoever it is. I mean, imagine if you had all of that time back. I mean, be honest with yourself. I mean, I'll be honest with myself. I spent a good amount of time recovering from drinking, thinking about drinking, and then drinking. Good amount of time. There was a year in my life where I drank every day. And that process probably consumed 6 hours of my day, every day. Imagine if I had a year with 6 hours to really build something, to create something, to lean in, to connect. Oh my goodness. I mean, none of us can go back and change time, but if you're in this back and forth thing of you're different than everybody, maybe it's something to have a look at. I sure as heck know it was for me. I think once I admitted I wasn't different, sort of the subconscious went to work on, well, what are you going to do to make changes? And that was worrisome to me. I didn't really want to make changes at that point. I wish I did, but it took a little bit of pain and discomfort and things really not going my way at all for me to realize that this was never going to change. My relationship with alcohol, with drugs, it was just never going to change. It was never going to get me to where I wanted to be. It was keeping me small, keeping me stuck, and just on that hamster wheel. Another thing I wanted to mention was the idea of moderation. I see a lot of things coming out on the marketplace and different tools about moderating and how you can do it. And here's 10 things to do before you go out on a night drinking. For me, I don't really get it. I try to stay open-minded to it, obviously. I imagine it works for some people. I mean, there's big businesses out there built on it. So maybe it makes sense for some. I don't know. I don't really see much of that around me personally. But I had to get that out of my head. And that was difficult because the reality was I wanted all of it to work out. I wanted to let loose. I wanted my insecurities to slide away. I wanted to have a Friday night to look forward to. I wanted to forget about everything from the past. And alcohol did all of that very well. I wanted to connect with others. Alcohol did that as well. It was awesome at times. But I knew the longer I stuck around, the more I was opening myself up for the other side of things, for things to go terribly wrong, for me to do things and say things that were not really true to my character. And I changed. I became somebody that I wasn't. I became angry. I became frustrated. I became irritable. I became just worried about my next drink without even really realizing I was worried about my next drink. I didn't just have thoughts go through my head all day about when I can drink, when I can drink, when I can drink. But I knew the same time every night was usually when I started to drink, crack a beer, tell myself I'm only going to have 3 because I have to work tomorrow, or I have whatever, or I just don't want to feel like crap, or I want to do something else. And man, 9 times out of 10, I would just say one more, just one more. And then it's 2, 3 in the morning, and I just pass out on the couch and wake up the next day and say, oh, I'm not doing that again. And here we go. Do it again. And maybe some days not even really bad. And I think if moderation was possible for me, I would have figured it out already. I would have figured it out then. I really would have figured it out because I tried. I tried switching stuff. I tried switching where I hung out, who I hung out with, what time I started, whether I ate or not. I mean, just pure insanity. Pure insanity. So if you're out there and you're still trying to figure that out, maybe just give it some further thought. I mean, don't you think that that's pretty fair to say? If it was going to work out for you, it already would have. Like, I don't know that people that are experiencing consequences and have shame involved and feel guilty about maybe things that went on while drinking. And I don't know if they're considering moderating things. Like, I think people who do moderate things, it's fairly easy for them. It's fairly easy. I think at other things in my life that are difficult for some, but I don't struggle with them, so they're fairly easy to moderate. When it comes to gambling, I bring that up a lot. I mean, I can go overboard at times, but I can easily moderate it, step away, not feel guilt, not feel shame, not even think about it for 8 months at a time. And then I take my grandmother to the casino for her birthday, and my life goes on afterwards. So I think there's a big difference there. For me anyway. I don't know everybody's unique perspective and story and journey, but just my 2 cents heading into this week's episode with Don. Incredible episode. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Now let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Today we've got Don with us. Don, how are you?
Doing good, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm glad we got connected. Glad to share your story with everybody here on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm new to the whole podcast, so you got to bear with me. I might get a little nervous, you know.
That's okay, man. I still do, even after 230 something episodes in a couple years or 3 years at this, coming up in a little bit here in October. So it's all good.
Good.
What was it like for you growing up?
Oh, well, I always go back to that one. I actually had like a really normal childhood, I think. My mom and dad were divorced. Or actually, no, they were never even really married, to be honest with you. And my dad was awesome. He was like in a biker gang. He had long hair, you know, he smelled like cigarettes and whiskey. And then my mom was like an absentee landlord. We're doing better now, but she wasn't there. She was sweet. She was just, they were young, like 24, 25. And I had split custody. And as normal as it was, I think I started getting introduced to booze when I was very young. My dad was an alcoholic. He was the sweetest, like the most loving guy in the world, but he was just, you know, losing his license. I looked like every other month and, you know, going to jail and getting locked up. But he was like, I didn't get it because he was a sweet character. So yeah, that was kind of, it was pretty normal other than that, you know, nothing crazy or weird happening, but lots of time just split between the two. One who's not really there, one who wanted to be there but was always drunk.
Yeah, which is so interesting too. I mean, a lot of people on the podcast who share kind of these, you know, maybe 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 different ways they grew up. And a lot of people lean into that, you know, things were all right. Things were pretty good, you know, and then it's always interesting how things move forward. And we eventually struggle with this too. Any early memories like from growing up that remind you of things in those days?
Yeah, I remember my father, he was a mechanic. He was a diesel mechanic and he built engines and built cars. He was super talented. And I remember just lately these memories started to resurface. I remember he picked me up. We had like dual custody and he would pick me up from a couple of miles away and he would drive. And one day he passed out while he was driving. We were just creeping down a road and he just nodded out and he banged into the back of a woman's car. And then the girl came out and looked at me. She was like, "Hey, you got to get in there and get your stuff straight." And then, like, like you pull it together. My dad was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I've been going through it," and apologizing to me. And then that was the kind of the downhill the last few years before he passed with alcoholism. And then from there, it was just, it got like, I couldn't understand back then how somebody could drink that much and be into it. I thought booze was gross when I was younger. I told myself that I was going to be sober for my whole life, or never drink or whatever, or do drugs when I was younger. I just didn't get it. Like, how could somebody be so sweet and loving and then just like not control it? I remember one of the hardest ones I ever did was when he lost his license. I would call him on the phone to see if he was okay, because I could actually ride my bike there. It was only a couple miles, and I called him and he was sober. And it's like a 30-minute bike ride. When I called him, he was good. And I rode my bike to see him because I just loved hanging out with him. So I'd ride there. We're going to do a project together. Everything was fun. Within 30 to 35 minutes, I get there. I unpack the bike. I walk inside, and he's cross-legged on the floor with his head on the floor, like sit Indian style, passed out with a whole bottle of vodka, like gone. So as soon as he got me on the hook that I was coming, something internally happened. He just, what? And then, yeah, that was hard. That's when I realized at 15 that something wasn't right. My grandpa came. My grandpa was sweet. Grandpa picked him up, showered him, fed him coffee, and it's like, his name was Don too. He's like, "Don, you're gonna be okay. We love you," And yeah, it was scary. It was like how I was angry at booze companies back then that they even sold it. The fact that they could even get away with doing this to people, because I thought it was their fault. I didn't realize it was an internal thing.
Yeah. Well, at 15, yeah, it's. Yeah, I mean, how much do we really know about how all of it kind of playing out too? What was that like for you though? Because in the notes that I had for the episode too, you shared there too, your father passed away at 15. I mean, what was that like for you?
Uh oh man, it hit me in different stages. After that happened, it went like from here to like, I don't know internally what was killing him. I have a couple ideas. I think maybe not being able to show up for me. He also had a daughter that I knew about that he didn't have custody of, that she was gone. I think he had some other internal problems. I remember asking him 2 months before he passed, I was like, "Do you believe in God?" Because I went to a private Catholic school back then. And he goes, "I don't have enough time for that." And I was like, "Well, if you die, I got to make sure you go to heaven. I want to see you again." And I broke down, because something was happening. And then the couple of days before he passed, same thing. I showed up. And I remember, like I said, he had cigarettes in his mouth, and he had this Levi shirt on, and he had, he had a bunch of nips kind of hidden, and he was shaking, and he looked at me, and he was like teary-eyed. He's like, "I would do anything for you." I'm like, "Would you just quit?" And he couldn't lie to me, and he just sat there and just froze and was like, and he just like bowed out and just walked away. And that's when I was like, he's on for the ride. And yeah, I don't know what demons he was struggling with, and it hurts because I wish I could help. I wish I knew about it. My dad ended up dying about a month later. He was in the bathroom and he drank himself to death, and he fell and he hit his head. And I remember I was working at Burger King when it happened, and my mom showed up, and she didn't tell me what happened. She said, "I have to pull you out of work." And I get out, and we've always kind of done this with my dad, where he's in jail or something's happened, or he's broke down or something, or got fired. And I remember my mom just driving me through all the roads that I would ride to on my bike to get to his house. And as soon as she pulled in, the ambulance already left. So we missed missed everybody, or the corner, whatever it was. And then we just hightailed it and followed him all the way to the hospital in Providence. And then he was laid out when I got there. And I was just like, I was pissed. I was like angry at him for letting it happen. How could you not pull your shit together? But lo and behold, later on, many years later, I know what that feeling's like, of getting drawn in, that I can't stop feeling.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's a tough story, I'm sure, to share about and talk about. When did you start drinking? I mean, were you still after that with the experience of your dad? You mentioned too, angry at, alcohol companies kind of committing and to never drink and stay sober forever. I mean, was it after that shortly that you started drinking, or no?
No, I lucked out. I met a couple of friends in my neighborhood, and we were all into punk rock bands. And one of them was straight edge, so it was no sex, no drugs, no alcohol. And I was like, well, I'll do all this, maybe not the sex thing. I was young. I was 15, 16. So I rode with him for a couple of years of being straight edge, no drugs, no booze. And I remember the first day that I drank, that kid that I was sober with, he started drinking. And then he offered it to me and my two friends who never drank. Me and both these kids became alcoholics, which is so funny. Me and this kid Orlando, we drank together, and me and him got into a fight. I was having fun, and it shows you like our whole life path was the same way. Like I was having fun, giddy, doing weird stuff, and the other guy was crying. And I knew exactly at that moment that I was different because the other guy would drink. Some other kids would be drinking with us, and these two new dudes, me and him, went off the rails. Like I instantly felt like Brad Pitt. I instantly felt like all my fears, my worries away. My personality turned from like a little like a 16, 17-year-old kid into like I felt like I was a 25-year-old man who's made it. You know, like I instantly felt confident and cocky. That's why I got into a fight with that kid. I was teasing him. Yeah. So like every time I drank after that, it was an instantaneous switch. Like I'm shy, I'm introverted, I'm weird. And then I drank, I was like, oh my God, here it is. Like the shell's off and I'm back alive, you know, like there is no fear and it's instantaneous. I mean, like with one drink, I feel like I'm, you know, some superhero like person. That's why I always got myself in trouble because I felt like I was too cocky, you know, it's wild. But I should have known that moment. Like here it is. This is a sign to lay off.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can relate to that too. The first time I drank, yeah, people have heard it on the podcast, I'm sure, a million times, but yeah, it was, I just thought to myself, like, man, where's this been my whole life? I mean, all my insecurity slipped away, not feeling good enough, not succeeding here, not being at that level, not having the rest of my life mapped out. You know, the tail end of high school where I feel like all my peers or whatever, you know, I mean, they're like, yeah, going to school and everything. And I want to do this. And there I was, I had no idea what I wanted to do, just got in a ton of trouble. And it sort of became my way, I think, in the long run of fitting in. I wasn't sports. It wasn't academics for me. It was a party. Let's see how much trouble we can get into. And it just kind of became my lane. And it's really interesting too, with your earlier experience, how it happened so quickly, you know, kind of thereafter, right? Before you even leave high school of plugging in. And then you have that experience too, which it's like, man, it always, it's so interesting to me how it just takes off like that where we get that different sort of feeling from it, because a lot of other people I hung out with too, I mean, they were take it or leave it. It wasn't all in. How is school and everything for you? You mentioned a Catholic school. How was that? How'd that go?
I did good. I did good with that. I did good with like, I was pretty normal, I think, all the way up till 24, 25. Yeah, I was just like a normal dude. You know, I was growing it up. I was kind of just not really getting too much. I got my first DUI at 23, but I was just like, I live in a small town. I chucked it up to that, but I was ripped. I started getting into fights. I started turning into a tough guy around 24, 25-ish. And then at 24, I lost my grandpa. My grandpa was the guy who took over from my dad. I'm telling you, if he was a saint, the most patient, loving, kind guy I ever met. And all he wanted to do was love me. And I knew it. I knew when he got sick. I was driving home one night. I'm like, when he dies, I'm going off the rails. Like I mentally checked out. I was like, either it was an excuse or it was just a pain because it was like another person. I never dealt with death so much, you know. I lost like 2 grandmas and a bunch of other stuff, normal stuff. But for me, my grandpa was like the last nail in the coffin. And lo and behold, when that stuff started happening, I started like, you know, started doing a little drugging, you know, started drugging and boozing. And I chalked it up to like, well, I'm just a funny guy. Like I'm a cool dude. But internally, it was physically melting down. And it was the first time in my drinking career where internally I felt like I was eating myself up skin-wise. Like I didn't like who I was. I didn't like what I was doing. I started doing weird stuff back then. I started lying. It was like just this, like going from this wholesome dude to like, and then when he died, oh yeah, the afterburners were on and the freight train was kicking in. And that's when I started to really do some crazy stuff. Like, you know, just blacking out. I started like finding, like I'm 24, 25 and I'm going to like the same bars, to the same people and doing the same thing. That's when I started focusing on like just all the bad stuff. Like I had to find love and get drunk. And that was my life for the longest time. I was going to find love. Yeah. It was going to fix my problem. You know, I had a great career, so I thought the career was going to save me, but I just kept on going.
Yeah.
And then, I kept on that path. I got another DUI, got in some serious trouble, started losing jobs. I was good at keeping it quiet. I kept like, I got to do this, do that. And then I was losing my soul. And then finally I went down to Florida for a job and I lost it. I got a little too heavy on it. Like a week being down there, they got me down there and I did it. And they're like, you got a problem. And there was a lot in the middle of it. But I remember the first time I ever thought that I really had a problem was I was in Florida and I met my first sober friend. And I told him what I was doing. He's like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but you might be an alcoholic. And I was like, no, there's no way. Because internally, I think if I had to admit that I was an alcoholic, that I had to die like my dad. And that was the script that I had in my head for all the way up until I was 28, 29, that if I admit that I'm an alcoholic, I have to go out like him. And it scared the living bejesus is out of me. And then that's when, like, I think the real alcoholism kicked in, because my trigger was death. This sounds crazy or weird, but I didn't know how death was going to come. And I was nervous about it. I didn't have faith then. So like for me, I'd be driving my truck, doing something, going to a job or something. And then I would be like, when am I going to die? How am I going to die? When's it going to happen? Where do I go? Like the whole Western culture kind of deal of death. And the only way to solve it was taking a couple nips and then boom. I don't care. I could die now. I'm cool, man. You know, it was like this instant swing, and I was combating it with the booze. And then, after that, after 28, I think things went way downhill. My whole life was, I lived as an engineer on private yachts. So I was in the Caribbean, living in islands where you could be an alcoholic and nobody cares. Like drinking during the day, drinking at night, going out, doing drugs, like nobody cares as long as you work. And I was in that, and I was like, oh, this is like my life. I'm a pirate, you know? I'm a cool guy doing cool things, but that was not cool at all. And I wasn't a cool dude. I was like a ruckus. I was barely getting through with work, barely, making the money, thinking that I was making it, but I was losing my soul. And every day was like, for years, I tell you what, I don't know, I haven't seen hell, but I can tell you what it feels like, just being empty and crawling in your skin everywhere you go, not being able to look anybody in the eyes, and trying to fix it with just drinking.
Yeah. What did you do for work in Florida when you went down there?
Same thing. I worked on yachts. I was bouncing around on boats, and I was getting to the point where I had a really good name for myself. And then towards the tail end of it, I did a couple jobs in St. Thomas and St. Martin, and those were like my Achilles heel. That's beautiful. It's this place that doesn't make any sense. It's like this huge culture of people. It's beautiful. There's tons of money. You could be drunk all day. So I'd go down there and I would binge, and I would get close to death and like get fired. So those two boats they had to let me go. And I was like, all right, well, maybe this is something where I'm starting to notice I have a problem. And I kept on denying it for years. I started to hang around maybe with a couple people from AA. I started to see it. I actually went into my first meeting when I was younger, and I was like, no, this ain't for me. A bunch of guys smoking cigarettes. It was hellish. It didn't make any sense. And long story short, I started getting progressively worse and worse and worse. And then I remember my last relapse. I started getting relapses like big ones. Like I would bend for 4 or 5 days and then clear out for a month. And then that led to like me going into a psychiatrist, like, hey, I think something's wrong with me. Like I need help. And then like, oh yeah, here's medication. Here's like some serotonin stuff, and not telling them that I was doing drugs and I was drinking. So they'll load me up with psych meds, and now I'm doing Kratom, and now I'm drinking, and now I'm doing drugs when I'm in St. Thomas, and my brain, holy moly, even thinking about it gives me like the shivers of the stuff that I was like legit making stuff just to get me up and down through the day, uppers, downers, this, booze. And then I remember my last one, which was the scariest one. That's when I realized that I was no longer an alcoholic, that I was like a death drinker. Because the last few of them put me in the hospital within like 2 or 3. The time was getting quicker. Like every time I have a relapse, it was like, okay, I had a month, I had a relapse, and I was out for a week. And that was like, all right, now I'm out for like 2 days. I'm in the hospital. I'm out for a day. So it was exploding quick. I had a month sober. I went out on a boat. I was on a boat that I didn't want to be on, doing it for the wrong reasons, for the money. And I told them that I wasn't going to drink, and I was a rock star for a whole month. And all they wanted to do was every day they asked me, do you want a beer? And I was knuckling grinding. I had no support system. I didn't have any faith. I had no sober friends. So I was out there just doing it, knowing that I was going to die. So every day I was like, hey, I can't drink. And I did it for like almost a month. And then all it took was I looked at my phone, and my best friend died, my buddy Carlo. And I started crying on the aft deck, and the captain came up to me and he goes, hey, I think you deserve that beer. I said, hey, you know what? I think it's okay. Let's do it. And at that point, I hardly knew exactly who I was, what I was doing, how dark it gets, and how fast it happens, knowing that within a couple of days I'd be in a hospital or in a ditch. I drank a beer. I immediately went downstairs, drank a whole bottle of vodka. I went out for a walk. I went on a bender for the whole night in St. Thomas. I came back. I had that next day off. I did it again. And at this point, I'm like, well, the wheels are off. So they're either going to fire me or I'm going to have to leave. And the next day on Sunday, the girl that I was dating was on the boat. She's like, "Hey, you got to pick it together. You got to put it together, you know." And they liked me so much, they were kind of watching me go through it. Then Sunday, I drank all day. I came back and I said, "Hey, I need Monday off." They're like, "Cool, do what you got to do. You've been doing great." Took Monday off. I went nuts. At this point, the wheels are off. I'm loaded up, and I'm bouncing around the island doing drugs and drinking. I can't stop. And I was sitting on the beach at 2 a.m. that like Monday night, and I was like, that ain't working. I can't do this. Like, I got to go. And I started having the ideas like, how are we going to set ourselves up because this is going to end badly. And then I went back to the boat. I told them the truth. I was like, "Hey, I'm an alcoholic. I can't stop." They're like, "Well, get us through this charter and we'll just let you drink." And I got a free pass to drink on the boat, like in front of them. I didn't have to hide it. They're like, "Don't do any drugs. Just drink and get through the job. And then we'll buy you a ticket. We'll give you a bonus and you get out and heal yourself up." So they gave me a free pass that lasts for 4 days, and I drank myself to oblivion where I broke down for the 4 days. And I was like, "You guys have to send me to the airport tomorrow or I'm going to die on this island." And they agreed. They understood. They were cool. They bought me a ticket. This is how crazy. I'm so lucky I didn't die. They sent me to the airport. I got to the airport, and as I went through the airport gate, a guy handed me a beer, and I drank it. I turned around and said, I'm not ready to leave. I was in paradise. So I got a taxi to a hotel across the street where the boat was. I was that close to getting sober, and I turned right back, and I went to the hotel. And all I know is, again, like the hell feeling, like everything was great for a couple of days. I was in a hotel partying away. I had a bunch of money saved. And I felt like a box that was this big was getting closer and closer. I was going out, talking to people. The next thing you know, I'm stuck in my room. I can't go out. The next thing you know, my room's getting smaller. And I have a TV on. Next thing you know, the TV's off and I can't leave the bed. And I'm hiring taxi drivers to like bring me booze. And that was the moment. I'm like, all right, this is it. I accepted it. I was like, I'm ready to go. Like, if this is how it's going to be, because I can't do anything about it. And I can't stop. I was in there for a whole week drinking. And then you talk about God. This was the first time I think I ever met or talked to God. The bellboy, the guy who ran the place, was this big, tall Jamaican guy, 6'2", Rasta with dreads. He comes knocking on the door. It looks like a guy that would kill you. He knocks on the door and goes, "Hey, man, I hope you're okay in there." And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Can I come in?" And he came in, and it was a whole week's worth of damage, right? So I'm all beer cans everywhere, mess, not eating food, shaking, drinking water from the sink, trying to do that. And he comes in, he sits down next to me, and I'm on the bed, and I'm like, I can't stop. He goes, "Oh, I know. I've seen what you've been doing. Do you want help?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can't." I broke down. I started crying. He hugged me. Oh my God.
Yeah.
He gave me a big old hug, and he's like, "I got you."
Wow.
And he sat with me for like a day.
Wow.
He sat with me, and he took off the job, and he got somebody else to cover for him. And he sat with me, and he fed me beers just to get me through. Apparently, he was an alcoholic, and he knew that I could just stop. So he would like joke with me, and he's like, I had to get ready to get out of there. So he got me a plane ticket, and he brought like a 6-pack. He's like, "I'm going to give you one every hour, and there's no other hanky panky. We got to get you home and we got to get you safe." So he did research, talked to some of the friends that I kind of knew in AA, and he sat with me and just like, "Here's one," and I would chug it, and he goes, "Easy." And then he would watch me. If I started getting a little weird, he just coached me. He cleaned me up. He packed all my bags. He drove me to the airport, and he waited. And then he got me in there, and he talked to the he talked me to the security guard. They got me in, and then they just kind of held on to me and just kept me there safe.
Wow. Was it just you in the hotel? Just you and him at the end?
Yeah. And then he got me to the airport, and then some sweet security guard like held on to me and hugged me until I got on the plane. Then they told the plane, and they got me to Florida, and they just coached me the whole time. And then I went to a halfway house in Florida. That's where I started.
Wow. And when was this?
Oh. Golly, that's a rough one. Man, it's coming up on 5 years. I went to the halfway house, and it gets worse. I went to the halfway house, and they all took me in, and I was coming off like a month of drinking and God knows what else I was doing, and it didn't end there. I went to there, and I left that night. I got there late and I was rough. I was like, it was a full blown month. I never did so much drinking and whatever else I was doing for that long. So I got to the halfway house and I was ruined. I mean, I was like ripping out of my skin. And the guy's like, hey, there's like 2 rules. I know you're going through it, but you can't drink on the property and you got to be for the meeting in the morning. I'm like, oh my God, the last thing I want to do is go to an AA meeting. And I was so lucky. My friend that I met a long time ago, he was young at the time. He was like 27. He got me into this halfway house. I thought I failed at life, like that my life was over. I was in a place, but the place was on the beach in I forgot where. I was right in the beach in Hollywood, Florida. So it's like the waves and the crashing. It was beautiful and it was affordable. I could be there for a bit, and I hated it. And I got there, so the first thing I did was I took off that night and I found a liquor store and I drank like 6 bottles of wine. And I stumbled in and I woke up for the meeting all happy. And he's like, dude, like, if you're gonna be here, you can't do that. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. And I wasn't ready. For days, I snuck beers in and snuck stuff in to keep me going. And then I don't know what happened. It was a couple days into it that I says, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to come off everything. If I come off the booze, I'm going to come off all my psych meds because I don't know who I am as a person. I got diagnosed for the serotonin one when I was drinking and using all that stuff. So I was going to come off everything. So I came off everything. 2 or 3 days into it, it was a little foggy. I come off everything and I sat in that room for like a week, just shaking like a leaf, taking showers, sleeping, crying. And then, 6 or 7 days into it, I went for my first walk, and it was my sobriety journey started with me walking down to the beach, saying F it, going back, falling asleep, walking to the beach, taking a right, taking a little bit more of a journey down the beach, coming back, saying F it. Then finally, after a week of that, I went to some of my first meetings that were outside of the place. I met my first sponsor, who was this guy who made jewelry, who picked me up, and I just cried and talked to him about how much I failed. I had to call the boat like 2 weeks into it, and I was really nervous about money, and I was like asking for my job back, and the captain was like, just get sober, dude. Like, we love you. Just take a break from life. And then I don't know how it all happened, but a month into it, I stayed sober. I bared through it. And then I got my first job on land in years, working for a hot rod shop, building hot rods. And I walked in, they're all skittish. I don't know how I got the job. It was all God. I was like, I build hot rods, and he's like, all right, so what can you do? And you could tell I'm weird, man. Like I'm like a month into coming off my psych. My eyes are all squirrely. My hair's all messed up. I'm like, I'm not the guy that I used to be, right? And they're like, you all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm cool, man. Like I got too much coffee today. And I get in and they give me the job. I had no car. I borrowed one of the guys at the halfway house's car to get there, a Mustang, so I look cool. And I would lie for the first few months of why I didn't have a car. And I was like, I just moved down here. I think they knew, but they saw some good in me, but they're also probably scared. A couple months go into it, and then I changed halfways from where it was to closer. I was driving an hour, and I bought a Pontiac Firebird, an old school Pontiac Firebird. Oh, this is the car I was telling you about. And they're like, dude, are you sober? I'm like, yeah, I just got sober. And that was the first time I was open about it. I was like, oh, geez, I'm going to get fired, because I only had a couple months. Long story short, I worked for those guys. I started building hot rods, and like a couple of amazing things happened. I met my first group in sobriety. They were all kids my age. They follow your podcast. They were all, if you guys watch this too, you know who you are. There were these 2 women and 2 guys who took me under their wing. And man, I'm telling you, my self-doubt and my self-belief system was so messed up back then. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do this. I wasn't worthy. I wasn't worthy to be loved. All my head was down the drain with who I was and what I could do. I was embarrassed. And these people would talk to me frankly and be like, shut the F up. You're brilliant. You're smart. You can do all this. Just give yourself some time to kind of clean up. So I would hang out with them. I would go to meetings. I would go to retreats. I would start going to the gym. I started praying. They told me I needed to pray to my higher power. And I was like, I don't know who that is. I always thought God was like Big Brother and judged me. And then I went to a retreat. And this is where the first time I felt a little bit of hope. I went to a retreat, and there's this pastor, big old beard, full sleeve tattoos. He's got his beautiful wife. He's like 27 or 20. He's younger than me. He's got 3 daughters, and they're all like, 4, 2, and 1, and they're all blonde hair. And I'm looking at him, I'm angry. Like, this mother, he's got everything. I want that. Why do I have that? I was the alcoholic brain thinking. And I go up to him, and I swore. And he's like, well, what's going on, man? I was like, yeah, how do you pray to God? Like, where's God? Who's God for you? And he's like, well, how do you picture your perfect father? Oh, I can't. He's dead. I was like super, super bummed. And he puts his arm around me. He says, listen, boy, can I talk to you frankly? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, until you get rid of the hate in your heart, you have to realize that God loves you. Well, how do you pray to him? He's like, well, picture me, your father. Like, who does the perfect father to you look like? I'm like, and I actually let the walls down a little bit. I'm like, oh my, he would show up on a Harley and he'd have long hair and smell like Brute cologne and smoke cigarettes and tell me everything's going to be okay. He's like, pray to that. So it was my journey of starting to pray to this, maybe more of my father figure, asking him, and like, instead of being embarrassed and praying to this thing, I was like, God, I love you. I can't do this alone. Can you keep me sober? I can't do this. I'm an idiot. And then I would pray to God for other things. Can you keep me focused? Can you keep me open? Can you help me to stop lying? Can you help me to not want to do kratom? Like, it was just like these things that I started relying more onto my higher power for. And I got me through that job. I started building hot rods. It was the first time I ever belonged, and I was doing it sober. And it was, I don't know how long it took, but maybe a year into my sobriety is when I started really opening up, telling people other than my close circle that I was an alcoholic. I was praying. I was talking about God. I was meditating. I was, journaling. I was writing grateful lists. I did. One of my sober friends told me to make a grateful list every night of 15 things. I thought it was the dumbest thing ever. It changed my life. It went from being like, I got a roof over my head to like, I'm so grateful that old woman gave me a hug. You know what I mean? It was like it was shifting my focus from the darkness to the light. And then at some point in my sobriety, I realized that the universe isn't out to hurt us. And it's not some painful thing. It's all internal into me. And the universe just wants me to do good. And it was, the whole thing flipped really quick. And it was like I was walking in the dark, to now the light's on my face and I can feel it.
Yeah. Wow, man. What a ride. You mentioned it too. You mentioned it too a couple of times there. The, what do you call it? Kratom. Really interests me with, like, that's something you just get from the store, convenience store. Is that like that stuff?
So like I realized in the beginning, it took me a while to get it all together, right? It took me a long time. There was some times of sobriety way before that and off times. But when I got sober this last time, I realized that I'm obviously, there's something genetically in me that's different. When I have one, something flips, my focus changes, and all I think about is a party, right? So, and I also get knocking on death's doorstep really quick. So the death things made me stop drinking, boom. And it got me through most of it. But the first year in Florida, kratom is everywhere. I don't know what it was. It was just a tea. They have these bars. So I kind of got my fix of like, I went in and I tried it. And the same thing happened. Whoa, the pearly gates opened up, all the fear went away, and it's an opioid. People will say it's something else, or it's okay to do if you're not drinking. If you're an alcoholic, man, or if you're any kind of an addict, don't touch the stuff, because the stuff pulls you in just as hard, and the withdrawals are way worse than alcohol. It's like booze will kill you. Kratom will just make you. When I came off kratom, so I got sober. I had some time. And then I was doing kratom in the background, being like, well, I'm sober from booze. This is fine. And all my sober friends were like, no, you're not sober. You got to change your sober date. And then that hurt. I had to go through the pain of that. And then it took me a while to get off it. It wasn't until my birthday, a year later, that I got off kratom. And that was like a month again in the hole of, and being like, I can't touch it. It was the biggest blessing I ever had, because I realized I cannot touch anything. Anything that makes me gravitate towards it, it will bring me right back at the same place. So I have to just totally abstain from everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting too. I mean, I've known a lot of people talk about it now, probably like more now, I guess, but I always wonder like why you get all this stuff just at the, the shops and whatever. But yeah, I didn't know that the withdrawal was worse than that of, alcohol. But yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I have the same, for me, it's the same thing. Like I can definitely take anything to another level. Like I really have to be mindful. I mean, there's some things in my life to where I have to have them. Food, for one thing. I mean, I know that that's very real of people making that switch of like, okay, now it's too much, or it's processed foods, or it's this, or it's that. I even in my life today have to be mindful of not just eating pizza every single night, because it changes the way I feel. If I just have a large pizza, I'm like, okay, I feel pretty good for a little bit. I mean, afterwards, but it's something to even be mindful that, that you have to kind of keep things in check too, right? Because one thing can potentially lead us back to another, or just be like a shift or a switch into something else. Throughout this whole thing here, Don, I haven't picked up on if you have any support or have had any support in those early days of anybody close to you ever saying, hey, maybe you should get some help, or even when you decided to get help, like somebody that you could call and get help with, or were these friends kind of it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I came out to my mom early on that I was an alcoholic, and the first time I called, it was a long time ago. I told her, she's like, "Oh, I know." My grandpa back in my 20s was like, "You drink too much, you got a problem. Don't turn out your dad." So there's a lot that I skipped, but it wasn't until it's not until I really remember where I went to Florida. I've had people say, "Hey, I think you might have a problem. You might want to look into it." We were always skimming the surface. I think people had a hard time telling me because I was, when I was put together, I was fun. I was like a sweet dude, and then when I drank, I turned into a ruckus. It wasn't until I met the people in Florida, they embraced me at my, like, I'm telling you, I was at my worst, and they didn't want anything from me. All they want to do is hug me, bring me to places, and just teach me the ways. And they poured all their love into me. They were the ones who were like, "Hey, you got to get off the Kratom. You got to, oh no,
Yeah.
it's working, it's doing it." So they kind of took their piece with that. They told me, but then I got off it and I went back to them, and they're like, "Great, now we can fully embrace you because you are one of us now." And then that was, but they were always telling me, "You got to go to meetings, you got to get back, you got to help others." And they kept on just drilling it. Call up other alcoholics, talk to other people, ask other people how they're doing, get out of your own head. Because in the beginning, it was a nightmare. It was all about me. It was like, what do people think about me? How do people feel about me? How do I, do something grandiose so I can be seen? It was nightmare fuel. It wasn't until a couple of years into it that I rode my bike, and I call it the pocket. If I call up other alcoholics and talk to them, if I pray and I really mean it, and if I meditate and I journal at night and I'm grateful for the things around me, if I can even just sit down and just feel my bones and just, I call it the pocket. And I was riding my bike and I looked up in the sky and I prayed to God for like one of the first times. I was like, "Thank you. I couldn't do this without you. And I am an idiot. So just stay with me. Like, grab me by my neck and just ride this with me and keep me sober." And I felt the shivers and the sun on my face. And that was the first time I felt really connected. And after that, I'm telling you, some weird stuff happened, like just amazing things. Like I met a hippie at a meeting not too long after that, and good looking disheveled guy with a big smile on his face. And I was still struggling. And I was asking him, how are you so happy? And he goes, "Man, I'm just living, bud. I'm living and I'm sober." And he's like, "If you can live sober if you can stay sober till the day you die, you have won." And I was like, "No, that's dumb. I want to get car, and I want to get rich, and I want to be famous." And he's like, "No, no, no, no. If you just stay sober until the day you die, you have won the game." And then a couple months later, I was like, "Wow, that's profound, man. Like, not want anything else, but as long as I stay sober in this life and become a good dude and give back, I have won." And that's when the weight kind of went. I hope that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense that, I mean, just staying sober for the day. And I think, I mean, I don't know if it's relatable to you, but I realized too, in my life, that's the most important thing, right? I've got a family and I've got all these other things going on, but without sobriety, all the other stuff, like, I mean, I'm not a fortune teller by any means, but my educated guess is that it pretty quickly falls apart. So I've got to stay sober to keep all this other stuff together. But I've realized over the years, staying sober, opportunities come my way. It might not be riches or fame or, all these other things, but I do notice a lot of blessings, a lot of opportunities come my way. When I was drinking and doing drugs, I would always think, poor me, look at everybody else. They get all these opportunities and job promotions and this and that. Why doesn't anything ever come my way? And, now I know why, because I wouldn't have been ready for it anyway. And other people obviously picked up on that. But I think even just throughout staying sober, things do happen, cool stuff happens when we're paying attention.
Yeah, and then the biggest thing that I realized about being sober is I used to chase everything for the high. I need to, like, my serotonin levels were all over the place. I needed to do upticks to like make myself feel good. I take so much peace that I can go to a coffee shop, open a book, or open my laptop and study, and like just feeling my hands and like feeling and smelling the coffee or smelling and talking to people around me. It gives me like the shivers, man. And it's like, I don't know how to describe it, but being present in the moment for these times of like meeting new people and talking, smelling the trees on a bike ride, that stuff beats any of the crazy stuff I did when I was drunk. And when and that comes with time from being sober. And I look for those days so much now. And the one thing I did realize is this was a huge shift in my sobriety too, is I thought being an alcoholic made me defective. There was something inertly wrong with me that I would never succeed. And I can't say who the person was, but I used to do CrossFit, and one of the people that was dominating at the time had a thing where he was like, I was going through some struggles and I had to go to these meetings. And I dove into it, and he's one of us. And he was one of the fittest guys on earth. And I was like, that was the time that I realized, oh, we're not defective. And I kind of dove into that more. What I realized about being an alcoholic or an addict is we are people who can get super hyper focused. We have tractor or laser beams that can go like this, and we can focus on the bad. My life sucks. This is bad. And just kind of hone in on it until you explode, and you have to douse it with some alcohol to kind of, feather it out. We also have the laser focus to do things, start your podcast, start my own shop. Anything that we want to do, long as you're in the pocket and you can focus it, you can do it. Like I'm telling you, it's a superpower if you focus it in the right. You can legit do anything we want if we focus it in the right direction for the right reasons. We're unstoppable. It's just that we have to learn how to get back on the beam when we go to the left, because we can do it really quick. Oh, today wasn't a good day. Things suck. I hurt my ankle, yada yada, and it can just go right down that. You just got to be like, nope, everything's cool, man. I'm good. I'm here. I'm alive. I'm gonna keep on pushing. So that's what changed it for my sobriety too, is realizing that I'm not doomed. I'm not defective by any means. I'm just another guy who's I got my Achilles heel. I got to stay away from it, and I got to just leave that alone.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that forward too, because I feel like they're relatable as we get stuck in that spot that it's never going to be different for us, and that this is always going to hang over our head. And it is so true. It is a superpower of things. I mean, even if I look at all the skills, techniques, and things that went into surviving addiction, and you too, I mean, all this stuff, you're on the boat, you're going 4 days. I mean, you're going another 4 days. Look at all the situations, right, that we have to survive, or that we did survive. And the skills you pick up there, it's kind of like rechanneling those, right, of how we can move forward. The way we're doing it in the time of, sort of the active addiction is not helping our life, but those are things, if we can shift them, I feel like we can, gain that. But I think a lot of people worry about that. I think a lot of people worry, like, is the damage done, with my reputation or my relationships or with myself? And is this something I can actually come back from? So I think it's a beautiful story to share about how this can all be flipped on its head, and like we can go on to live really incredible lives and, have a lot of success as well.
I tell you this, man, from the bottom of my heart, when I first got sober, I thought I was the loneliest man. I thought I was the most miserable. I thought nobody could ever love me. I would never have any friends. I was deplorable. I looked at myself as like Jim Morrison without being cool, and I was just going to die. Like I had that persona. I was just like going to ride the snake until I died. And then as I got sober and realizing I had this superpower and having all these awesome people pump me up, like I would say negative stuff and they'd be like, shut up. No, you're cool. You're good. Like go to the gym, go for a walk, come back and tell me what you want to do with your life. Like that was consistent the thing, like just pushing through. And then at some point I realized nobody cares what I did. If I hurt people, I made amends with them in the program, and I apologized. And that was the hardest part, apologizing. And then most of the time I did it, they would come back and be like, I'm just glad you're doing good, man. Like, I love you. Like, get better. You would have done right by me. And then I realized that all fades away. And then the coolest thing that happens with getting sober is back in the day, if we messed up, we would drink ourselves to death to get over it, right? Or anything that we did that was wrong. Now, as I'm getting sober, I can look internally and not judge myself. If I get off the beam and I do something weird, if I swore at you, or if I, just saying, it's like if I did something that was out of character, I can look internally and be, oh, where'd that come from? Oh, I was scared. I was nervous. Let's not do that again. Let's change it. I love you. Boom. And you move forward. And you can keep on checking all your character defects at the door and not beat yourself up for it. It's one of the most, that's how I've grown the most, of just looking internally and being like, okay, I have some dark stuff in there. Let's look right at it. Let's figure it out. And when it comes up, just embrace it and then just move forward, not have to kick myself in the butt for it.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing. Yeah. What's that? Sorry, sir.
Yeah. That kind of sounds like grace, and it's, maybe in one sense of it all too, about how we're learning as we go, but we provide ourselves that runway for everything's not going to be perfect. But we're, like you mentioned it earlier too, I think, of, willing being open and like continuing the learning process, continuing to move forward, makes all the difference. And
Yeah.
like forgiving ourselves. And yeah, I mean, I did a lot of stuff I'm definitely not proud of. It's always interesting though, because I wonder if I could go back and change it all. Like, I mean, that's so difficult to me because even though I'm not proud of stuff and have, been through the amends process, I actually reached out to somebody today. I used to date this girl and her mom took me in so many times, like took me in. And I was just like, I was always like good. I was nice. I was respectful, but my intentions were terrible, like the reasons for it, and then just took advantage of the situation. I actually sent her a message today. She'd popped up on my Facebook, and I said, I just saw you on my Facebook, and I just want to say thank you for always loving me, kindness, and all this stuff. And I mean, this is 15, 16 years ago since I've seen her, but it's important. But I think that that's the big thing is like we remain open, and willing to learn and listen to other people, our support networks, and plug in, and just kind of have that competitive edge in a sense, right? I mean, what's more competitive than somebody who's already always evolving in
Yeah.
life and business and everything?
And it helps with every too. Even now, if something happens, like I drove by a truck the other day in a parking lot and I hit the mirror and nobody was in the parking lot. I got out and like I walked in, I was like, I hit your mirror. Like, I'm sorry. They came out like, oh, you don't have to, like, there's no problem. Like, thank you. Thank you for doing that. Like, I have to, if I live my life like that, it might be a struggle, but sometimes, or just being brutally honest all the time about my mess ups, but it just opens you up to this new way of living. Like, if something weird happens, with a business thing or something like that, I just come up and say, hey, sorry, I came at you like that. I want to apologize. And it's like, it makes people connected to you because I don't know, man. It's a really hard way to live when you're drinking, to be brutally honest and to be brutally upfront. But when you start doing it, it the grace from it, just to openly admit it to people about your defects and be like, hey, I was struggling yesterday. Sorry, I got snippy. I love you. They're like, cool.
Yeah.
It's freeing, and I live for that now. And I want to get better to where I don't get snippy or I don't get like that. I would like to be. I know it's a joke, but I would like at some point to be a guru, and I know that takes a lot of practice. And I always thought that I could.
Yeah.
Then I'm realizing it's funny in practice to think that you could become a guru, and then until you get snippy and you're like, oh, okay, this is hard. But I just want to live my life in a way that I can be brutally honest with the people I love and the people who are around me, and I can give back to them. And
Mm.
I just pray every day, God, just keep me on the beam and just keep on helping me make me a better person every day. And it works incrementally. You get a little tiny better every day, and you get a little bit more open every day, and it's a beautiful way to live.
Yeah. Well, great job. I mean, with everything too. I mean, what's going on with you now as far as your career and all that stuff? Yeah, share a little bit of that with us.
Well, right when I got really sober, I worked at a car shop. Like I told you, I went to another one, and I got into a fight with a guy. And I locked all my. This is God, right? I locked all myself in storage. I didn't know where to go, and I was in Florida at a place getting a healthy like shake, and I was eating some good food, getting back in the gym, and I was there every day for like a week trying to figure out what I was going to do, and I was scared. I was newly sober, and I was talking to my sober friends down there, and they're like, just trust the process. So I started filling out things, and an old girlfriend of mine sent me. This is really new into sobriety, especially from Kratom. Like this is like a year and a half or so. And she sends me a little thing, and she goes, "Hey, idiot! They're looking for a guy for a TV show. You should apply." And I'm like, I still have a lot of self doubt by then. I'm sober now, and I'm doing good. I'm getting a little fit, and I'm
Yeah.
creating some really cool stuff. I'm building some really cool hot rods, and my brain's starting to fire on all 8 cylinders. And I finally have a passion. And it was a TV show for Netflix that said they're looking for a fabricator, the guy to build stuff. And I talked to my sobriety crew, and they're like, "Go for it! Like we got your back." I applied,
Yeah.
did pick up, and I'm like, "Oh, this is not going to happen." And I just took a shot the next day. One of my sobriety friends told me to call him. I called him, and I talked to the casting agent, and I told her everything. Sobriety, looking for love in all the wrong places, how I just left this shop. And she asked me, what do you really want to do in your life? It's like, I want to be sober and I want to build stuff. She goes, all right, I'll put you forward to Netflix. Put me forward. I did a self-tape with them. All of us, they were all blacked out. Told them the exact same thing I'm telling you. I didn't care. I was like, I just got sober. I got some time. I'm building hot rods. I'm looking for love in all the wrong places. I just want to create yada, yada, yada. And all the screens came on, boom, boom, boom. And then they asked me, what is your end goal? Do you want to be famous? Like, I don't care. I just really want to build, and I want to be like, again, I want to be a good dude, and I want to build some weird shit. They're like, you got the job. be out here in 2 months in California. We start filming, sign the contract. They paid me money that I never thought I would see in my life. And I immediately went from like, having a car in storage to like get myself a little place. I went to the gym every day, got ready, did my sobriety stuff, went to like 2 meetings a day. I got geared up, man. I got 200 pounds all jacked up. I went out to California, drove out there, had a spiritual trip, listening to the Doors, praying out in Texas, doing all this weird stuff, going to meetings in every state. Show up to California and I freaking shred the place. It was the coolest experience of my life. So I went from not knowing what was going to happen to being on a TV show for Netflix, doing what I love. And that's when I looked up to the sky, the big man. I was like, hey, thank you. Whatever you need from me, I'm here for you. Like, and I don't know what that is, but I'm thinking now after doing these things, and he helped me do all this. And I got sober just a couple of years ago. Now I got my own shop. I'm building hot rods. I'm doing what I love. And I think now I'm starting to get the knock on the door where I think it's time I tell my story. And I realize it's not about me anymore. It's like I got to help out the kids or the older guys, maybe the hot rod people who are struggling to realize that this isn't something to be ashamed of. Alcohol doesn't care if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, if you're a guru, or if you're a businessman or a hot rod builder. If you got it, you got it. And you got to just know when to put it down. And there's a lot of awesome help out there. And it all comes from a place of love.
Yeah. Wow, man. That's wild. When was the Netflix show? When did you do that? Like how long
So
ago?
we filmed it a couple of years ago, and then it dropped 2 years ago. And it was top 4 on Netflix. And the funniest thing was, man, I've done some TV stuff before, and I've always had an ego or I've always been scared. This was the first time, because of sobriety, that I went out there and I was me, dude. I'm like, after all the years and starting to get sober, I realized who I really am. I'm not a tough guy. I'm not this person. I'm like a really sensitive, weird dude. And I went out there and the producers just enjoyed it. I love them. They're like, I got to be weird and build and create, say weird stuff. And it felt really good to finally start figuring out who I was and not be embarrassed for it, because I felt I had to be a certain way when I was drinking. I felt like I had to be, like a lot of us guys feel like we have to be a tough dude or whatever, or we have to be the Rock. And I went out there just hello, here we go, let's do it, And I got teary eyed a lot of days because it was a lot of work, but I would walk out of there and I was so proud that I was able to showcase the real me, the good and the bad. And that's something I could have never did with sobriety. If I went out there using, it would have been a whole different character. It would have been some arrogant Italian guy who's got to prove to the world how good he is. I went out there total opposite. I didn't have to prove anything. I just did the work and I made people laugh. And it wasn't me, man. It was I heard, this is a tangent. You ever hear how Rick Rubin on a podcast a long time ago asked how he's so good?
No.
Somebody asked him in a pod. This is a tangent, I know. I'm sorry, but he goes, you know how good you are? You made all these bands number one, or whatever. And he goes, it's not me. He goes, what do you mean? It's like, it's something else. It's like the muse or it's God. He said that the biggest thing you can ever do when you create is dedicate what you make to God and let him flow through you. So when I was out there, I practiced this. I would go out there and be like, my hands are yours. Whatever you want me to do today is yours. And I kept that continuation going every day. When I wake up, I get on my knees when I build something and I say, God, flow through my hands. Whatever you want it to be, it's yours. And when I do that, whatever I create is really cool. When I try to take over and build something, it's always bad. So on that show, I practiced the art of like, I'm here. Run through me, flow through me, whatever you want me to build and create, I got it. I'll do the work. You show me where to go, and it's always beautiful. So another thing I learned from sobriety is like I give him everything, not just my sobriety, not that part of it. I give him how I run my day, how I show up, and how I create.
Yeah, wow, that's even you mentioned there too. Like if you had went on the show, while you were still in the mix of everything. But it's even like maybe a step back. I think about, with the opportunity of, lined up like it did, right? And, I don't know about you, but I would commit to a lot of stuff, but showing up was a whole separate ballgame.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I would say, yeah, I'll be there. I'll do that. But it was hit or miss. Depends how I felt, right? Or what, I would always try to say, well, I got something tomorrow, right? So of course I'm only going to have a 6-pack, but I would always at the end of the 6-pack or whatever, I'd say, just one more and just one, and this is like years doing this stuff. So it was always really unpredictable of showing up for what I said I could do. So any other opportunities happened since then for you? Like now you got your own shop and now you're building. And And you've got the car. Like, what's that story?
This is the first car that I ever owned. It was actually the car that my father and I was supposed to build. And I don't know if you can see it, but we got sponsored by SEMA, which is one of the largest organizations out there in the automotive arena. And we're building it in his name, and we're gonna bring it there. So the SEMA is like when you bring the biggest and baddest cars, you showcase them. This has such a story to it that we're gonna build it, but we're gonna drive it out there. So I mean, talk about God. I've been doing my shop where I'm building all this weird stuff. This is an El Camino I'm building. It's all-wheel drive. And I've been vlogging it. I started my channel. My channel went from 0 followers to 100,000 followers on YouTube. All from like me just trying stuff, people telling me to like, start the channel, learning how to edit. So I guess where I'm going with it now is, yeah, I'm like, I don't really know what's happening or where this is all going, but I know it feels good. And I started doing this and all this by myself. And just the other day, when this thing became official with doing the Chevelle, all my friends from back in the day showed up. And every night, they all have full-time jobs. They come in at night and for free, they help me build it. And I care about them so much. So I think where I was going with that one is back in the day, I would have think, maybe the followers and the stuff that I've accumulated would make me have ego. But being sober now, I look at the tail end of it and I'm like, I am so freaking lucky to be able to do this with a clear head. So now when the guys come in, I'm like, how are you doing today? Can I get you a water? Can I get you a coffee? How can I love up on you? And then they just help. And where I really want to go with all this is we get the car done, we get it out there, and I give back. I start giving back to the people around me, bring with me as the channel grows. I don't know, help them build their stuff, spread the awareness of, the sobriety, like tell kids it's fun to do this stuff. The automotive industry is kind of dying, and I want to spread that out there too. So I don't really know what the grand scheme is. All I know is I want to be a good dude while I do it. And I want to give back. So however God wants me to give back, if it's talking about it, if it's, I don't know, maybe I start some sort of a foundation where it's like we have people come in here, we teach them, or we build them cars and we give them away. I don't know where it's all going, but all I know is I want to create, get the YouTube pop into I can't say popping, sounds like a millennial thing. Get the YouTube rocking and rolling. Get the YouTube rocking and rolling, and then just kind of ride the wave, man. I'm just riding the wave.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the coolest thing too, because I saw a little clip you did a while back on Instagram of the story of the car and how you and your dad were looking at getting it. And then your dad passed away and then you couldn't afford it initially. And then how it all came about and that you still have it, moons later. And now you're doing this, driving it out there. Like, wow, man, it's so cool.
And what I'm really proud of is like, back in the day, I had a part of me that really, really, really wanted it. We all have it, especially in alcoholism, that really wants to be seen. You want your peers to adore you. At least I know I had that for me. I had a part where I wanted to be seen by, luckily it's for men. I wanted men to like think I was a cool dude. And now as I'm doing the stuff, I look at it totally differently. Now I just want to create. I just want to build. And I want to do it in a fun way. So it's coming from a better place, which is I'm lucky. Because if this came from the other place, this would never work. If I came into all this, like I wanted to be some rock star and have a great YouTube channel, it never works. I don't care who you are. If you have bad intentions, it just doesn't happen. If you go into it like, hey, I'm going to show up, I'm going to work my ass off, and whatever happens. Same thing with your podcast. You're tuned in. You can tell that you're listening. You love it. Like it's going to go somewhere. If you went into like, I'm going to start a sober podcast, it's going to be number one. It's never going to happen. It's just never gonna
trust
happen.
Me. The last thing I ever wanted to do was start a sober podcast. I never. Well, it's interesting. That's a story, I guess, for another day. But it was never. I was just like, I'm gonna try it out, and then 3 years later, it's like here we are. I've met so many, and I think one of the things that really keeps me even doing it, is all the people you get to meet along the way. All the people you get to meet along the way, and if people pick up a thing or two, it's a beautiful. Another beautiful part of the process. But I just love the way we do it here, man. I think that it's the stories. It's not us telling people what to do, do X, Y, and Z. And then your life will be better. But it's just showing people what we did, what worked for us, what's possible, and how things can possibly change, especially when you connected the dots to how you were feeling at the end and even how you were struggling too in aspects of life, even in early sobriety. I think that sobriety offers so much beauty for life and so much opportunity to grow and make changes. But what I kind of take away from hearing all of this, your story anyway, is that you went from a place of hopelessness in a lot of areas to a place of hope, but also I'll see where it goes, like not having this, like it has to go this way or else it's that I'm doing it wrong, with everything else around you. So I really pick up on that. And I think it's really cool because we're hard on ourselves when we get into this, right? We've had this life of destruction in some sense. Are we ever going to be able to come back from that?
I love it. And I think what you need to realize too is what you're doing, you're helping so many people. I mean, there's so many different avenues to get help, and people doing what you're doing. You never know. Maybe my story to somebody makes them relate. Maybe somebody it doesn't. But what you're doing is you're the tree trunk that's allowing it all to flow out, and people can pick what they want and help them. And that's the one thing I want to say too. People who watch. I don't know if your podcast is, you higher power or whatnot. That's kind of how I got into it, and what helps me. But I want people to realize. Yeah. There's many different ways to get sober. I think mine was a mixture or concoction of. I found, luckily, what I really love to do, which was a hole in my soul that was missing. I didn't realize I was creative, and I had to let it flow. And I also found a higher power. So the mixture of those two coming together kind of fended off the demons until I got myself in check, and like, my God protects me. But people out there, if they don't believe, there are other ways. Like, I think the biggest thing for sobriety is people just realizing, okay, this shit sucks. You've done some weird stuff. If you just let it go, and if you can just cope with being easier on yourself, life just moves forward. And just start being honest with yourself. You can be brutally honest to yourself internally. You'll get sober and you'll get help. And if you have some good people behind you rooting for you, just start talking. I heard one of the tricks I did early on in sobriety was talk to yourself like your 15-year-old self. So like I would usually verbally abuse myself, right? Like, you're an idiot, you were late, you're dumb, yada yada. And then I started talking to myself like, hey, little buddy. That sucked. I'm like, yeah, I did. I love you. And it was weird at first. I love you too. And then like you kind of move forward, and it kind of just woosawed a bit, because we forget we were a kid at once, and life hit us in the side of the side of our heads. And yeah, you just got to be easy on yourself. Like wherever you are in your journey, the beginning of it, the ending of it, you're in the middle of it. Just go easy on yourself and just ride the wave, man. Just ride the wave and just flow with it, and things will get a little softer. Don't have to control everything.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it too. Yeah, we don't have to control everything. Acceptance, right? Accept things as they are, people as they are. We don't need to change or be in control of all that stuff. Any closing thoughts, Don? I really appreciate you jumping on here.
Yeah, thank you.
You sharing your story, man. I mean, it's great, dude. So proud of where you're at now, even though we've just met.
Me too. Yeah.
Any thoughts in closing, man?
Yeah. Let me see. I don't really have anything planned, but I guess my biggest thing I want to get through to anybody who is looking into getting sober, is having a hard time with sobriety. Get rid of the idea that you're defective. Get rid of the idea that your life's junk. You're going through a patch, you're at a crossroads, and at any moment you can change the crossroads or go down a different path. Now, is sobriety the easiest one all the time? No. You got to start dealing with pain that you never even thought you had, but as you go through it, if you can just ride through it and start learning how to deal with some of the pain and learning how to talk to yourself better, get some good people, it does incrementally get easier. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's not. There's nothing promised with sobriety, but what I can promise you is you will have moments in sobriety at some point where you finally get to smell the roses. And if you even get to smell the roses once and just be at peace and in the moment with the people you love, that will beat any high or any drunk you've ever had in your life. And I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart, like, just being serene I would pick being serene for one day than everything that I've ever done. I know that some of the stuff is cool, the hot rod shop on the TV shows, but the biggest thing I get from my sobriety is waking up with a coffee in my hand, driving in my truck, feeling the vibrations through my hand, and I actually get to feel it. And that for me makes me get teary-eyed, looking at the sun and getting the shivers. I know it sounds wonky, but I'm telling you, like, we were built to be sober. We weren't built to be drunk every day. We weren't built to be, we're built for a couple things: to love, to give back, community, and to like really be a part of this whole thing. And just be easy on yourself. If you're going through it, just be easy and start reaching out, and you're not that bad off. You can always turn it around, and you never know where it's going to go. It can go somewhere that you'd only dream of. And I pray that you can get there, and you deserve it. The biggest thing I've heard, and this is a tangent too, is a lot of people that I meet that who are drinking or alcoholics say they don't deserve it because they've done bad stuff. We are all initially built pure, right? Like, all of us came out of the womb as babies pure. Life hit us in certain ways. Some of it hit us harder and it sucks. And I get it. No matter what you've been through, you deserve love and you deserve to feel what it's like to live your best life. So get rid of all that trash in the background, dump it out, and just start walking forward and realize that you deserve it. It might take some time. Fake it till you make it. Tell yourself, I deserve it, even if you don't feel it. Because at some point you're going to wake up and be like, wow, holy moly, like I do. And I pray that all of you get to have that. And you all deserve it. So get sober, hammer on down, and live life.
Beautiful. Well said. Great way to end things, Don. Thank you so much. Well, there it is. Another incredible episode here on the podcast. Huge shout out to Don for jumping on, being new to podcasting and sharing a story with all of us. Incredible story. Well done, Don. Be sure to send him a message over on Instagram if you enjoyed this episode, got something from it, or were able to connect in any way. I'll drop his contact information down in the show notes below. And if you haven't left a review yet on Apple or Spotify, what are you waiting for? Drop a review, 5 stars, and I'll see you on the next one.